Would you like to reach our film and TV review podcast audience? Do you have a product or service of interest to film and TV home consumers or followers of the entertainment industry? Have a film or show production to publicize? For affordable price plans for all budgets, get in touch and find out about our introductory advertising options. Reach our audience of film and TV viewers and visit our site contact page at filmandtvreview.com, or you can email us at business@filmandtvreview.com. Reach out today. Welcome to filmandtvreview.com. Catch the latest film, TV and streamed show reviews every week. The views and opinions expressed by the authors and those providing comments are theirs alone. They do not reflect the views, opinions or position of filmandtvreview.com or their respective parent companies or affiliates. Filmandtvreview.com makes no representations as to accuracy, completeness, correctness, suitability, or validity of any information in this program and is for entertainment purposes only. Episodes may contain adult humor and language. For full terms and conditions, see filmandtvreview.com.
Hello there, and welcome to another Film and TV special. And this one's on a long-running franchise, Indiana Jones, which is at about 5 films now. I mean, of course, the latest one, Enjoy the Dawn of Destiny, has come out this year, or just quite recently. Of course, this all started back in 1981 with Raiders of the Lost Ark. With Harrison Ford as the lead, and I think it was really born out of creative idea from George Lucas, tossing around ideas with his pal Steven Spielberg on a beach. I think he was trying to take a bit of a holiday after Star Wars outbreak, let's say, and he was throwing around an idea for a James Bond, character. Or I think the story is that maybe Steven Spielberg had wanted to direct a James Bond. However, the producers had turned him down. So Lucas said, well, I may have a better idea. So Indiana Jones was born, kind of a worldwide adventurer based on the the public, the kind of like serials or TV series or teens, and it's kind of a retro film really. But in 1981, it's probably turns out to be one of those landmark films, and quite honestly a favorite in everyone's hearts. So gathered around a few of the hosts regulars who've actually sure have seen it and grown up with it, of course. So let's go around the room. I thought let's have our thoughts on, basically we'll start off going in order about Raiders of the Lost Ark. And if you haven't seen any of this film, it'll be a good chance for you to just get that and why we like it so much. I'm a fan myself. Andrew. Hi, Andrew. I'm pretty sure this film, let's say we start with Raiders in 1981, I think it came out. Steven Spielberg directed. It is classic. Well, what's your thoughts on Raiders? What does it hold? Does it dear to your heart? This particular film?
I mean, for me personally, I'm trying to remember it now because I've seen so many franchises since then. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just one of those things where even though it wasn't original, I mean, there were ideas from like Tintin and other pulp material that kind of inspired it. I think it's just one of those things where, all these films that have come out since then are like, oh yeah, that's so much like Raiders or this or that. And long story short, I saw the most recent one in something called Alamo Drafthouse. There's a chain of cinemas in the US, and before they show the main feature or even the trailers, when you walk into the cinema, they start showing all these shorts and other things themed to where the film is. And they were showing trailers for films from the 80s that seemed to be like also knockoffs of Raiders, of like Treasure of the Four Crowns and other things like that. Uh, can't even remember what other stuff, like just all these like action adventure, or like the 80s version of Alan Quatermain. Even though Alan Quatermain was something that existed before that, it was just this idea of bringing it back in the 80s was sort of like, oh well, people like Indiana Jones or like Raiders, let's do like an action film where the guy is kind of like this regular, this says he's an archaeologist, but you don't see him as much of a scientist guy. He's just more of a this guy who just finds himself in all these situations of having to fight like Nazis or other bad people. And it's just like a fun kind of thrill ride. And it's not impossible to see why it inspired theme park attractions at Disney, even before they took over the franchise, like whether at Disneyland or Disneyland Paris. I think the one in Disneyland is a little bit more immersive. Disneyland Paris is more like
Disneyland is a ride. Disney World is a show. Disney Paris is just a roller coaster, no real theme. And then Disney Tokyo is like the Disneyland ride. Yeah.
Like a more immersive. Yeah. So it's just a fun kind of ride thing. Whether it's the car chases or I guess I'll touch on this in Temple of Doom, the scene through the mines, the mine car. So yeah, it's just something light to see. And in this case, it's, looking for a religious relic, but it could just be any MacGuffin, and just have them search for it and face off against baddies, that kind of thing.
I think there's a kind of a line in thinking maybe there's a show which said that maybe Indiana Jones doesn't actually have in Raiders doesn't actually have any effect on the final outcome of the movie. What would happen? Of course, it's the this is, I think, basically 1936. I think it's basically is that it's a race to find the Ark of the Covenant.
The Ark of Covenant, yeah.
And I think with of course there is some kind of like threads of rumors and tales of say Adolf Hitler looking or being obsessed with occult objects of power. And of course, the Ark of the Covenant is supposed to have broken tablets of the Ten Commandments, and in there, quite power or whatever it is. And and it's basically quite a few spills and kind of like cliffhangers and kind of basically what those old TV series were, very much literally cliffhangers. With each episode or an episode would end with our hero in peril, maybe going off a cliff, and then what happens next week? We find out, he made it or didn't it. But in the end of this film, he basically it does end up in their hands to begin with, and I think the Ark itself tends to take care of business in itself. It kind of like destroys anyone who actually comes across it, and it's like, well, it doesn't really make a difference whether Indy got to it first or not. It kind of like it ends kind of oddly circular. But probably that's not the whole point of it. The whole point is basically the adventure and the ride, and quite a lot of, a strong lead by Harrison Ford. I kind of like, even running originally was going to be obviously Tom Selleck. Like he was going to the favorite, but he.
I think they showed a screen test of Tom Selleck.
Yes.
This was one of the things they showed before the main feature at Alamo Drafthouse was this documentary that Steven Spielberg had done later on, and sort of like showing clips from before of the screen test of Tom Selleck and how that was going to work out. But then, as Spielberg said, history now tells us Tom Selleck became the lead in this TV program, Magnum PI. So he kind of went with that. And so eventually they wound up with Harrison Ford playing.
I don't think he could get out of that contract because he was already signed under it. And I think obviously Tom Selleck wanted to obviously have a great, a film role like that. And with Spielberg, obviously, what actor wouldn't? But fate had other plans. And I'm kind of glad, actually. There's not, if you look at Harrison Ford's career, he's made these kind of very maybe archetypal, almost cliche heroes, or let's say Han Solo or Indy or Deckard, where it's kind of like now obviously they've been revisited, but it's a bit of a alchemy to make it almost relatable to a modern audience, even if it's the 80s or 90s or so forth. there's a charm there, or there's a everyman kind of like sensibility there that just Harrison Ford has it in spades. He's one of those last film screen idols, actually, which we're not really in the age of screen idols anymore, but and even then in the 80s, veering off from that, he is one of them. Anyone else had seen in Raiders of the Lost Ark in this room? Alfonso, have you seen it, or anyone else?
I saw it when I was really young. My parents took me to see Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I think that movie kind of motivated a change from PG to PG-7 or PG-13 in America, because like the creation of PG-13 or something like that, because it was a PG movie where a heart gets taken out of a body, and that kind of impacted people. I think I've read that. I don't know if it's true. And I was very young, and I remember that, that was an impactful scene. But I really enjoyed it. And I thought for a long time that was the first movie in the franchise, until I discovered in my teenage years that there was this one, Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I watched it. And I mean, I have a special place in my heart for Temple of Doom, but this one was very good too. I really enjoyed it, and I thought, as you said, that it was strange in the end how Indiana doesn't save the day really, but the Ark gets control of the whole thing.
Yeah, it's very. I mean, it's very. I mean, you got some really good leads. Obviously, a very strong leading lady plays Marion Ravenwood. The actress is God of name, but she's
Karen Allen.
Karen Allen, thanks. She's definitely, I think, one of those almost perfect strong leads where you're not telegraphing it. She's actually holds her own. She has a natural, almost tough bravado to her, who's kind of right straight off the bat, quite an equal to him. To Ford. You think what a perfect couple in that, and it's very hard, quite honestly, when you think you can count on your hand how many strong leading lady. I would say she's almost a co-leading lady in this, because it's kind of a banter between both of them, and it's almost like equal. The lines, the dialogue between them, she's not, obviously there are points where she's a bit of a damsel in distress, but basically they're both in peril, honestly. They kind of save each other almost, but it's a great pairing, and it is. I'd say, I mean, we originally talk about the original trilogy, obviously, but it's probably the most whole, or perfect body of a film in itself, as in a beginning, middle, and end. You could end it there almost. But like I said, I have a favorite in this. The sequel is like I said, like you, Alfonso, I probably saw Temple of Doom fully first, and then went back to this, and then after saying, oh, okay. But Noelle, obviously you caught up this film. I mean, when did you first see it on this DVD?
I think I first saw it when I was like 7 or 8 years old. I was in first grade. For first grade, I was dressed up as Indiana Jones. I love him very much. I was obsessed with it. We got the DVD 3-pack at Costco, and I was just obsessed with it. Temple of Doom was my favorite growing up. I now think this one's my favorite. I just remember Harrison Ford being so badass and so sexy, of course. And then Marion, she's cool. She's not just screaming, she's doing things. And just these kind of captivating villains. They want the truth, even though they're horrible Nazis, obviously. But it's just such an interesting story. And I feel like a lot of movies nowadays are 20 minutes too long and you can't tell what's going on action-wise. But this is how you make an action movie. It's a good movie that happens to be an action movie. And that's what I think makes it so good. But growing up, I loved Indiana Jones. Like, I still have a ton of Indiana Jones stuff. I'm going to bring some of it to Comic-Con to get signed. I've seen every movie many, many times. I grew up dressing, like always having, I've had like 4 Indiana Jones hats because I go through them and I destroy all of them. I have my original satchel, but Indiana Jones to me was better than Star Wars growing up. I still think it is because the first 3 are so good, but I still think it just stands the test of time because it's a good movie and it's an action movie and a lot of people are doing their own stunts and it's all very good and the music is amazing. I think the first one literally has like no flaws. It is very, very good and impressive and everything. And I still think it's very nostalgic, yet it's still good. So I think it's like a perfect movie.
I would agree with you. Even though my Hearts of Hearts no pun intended, probably do like Temple of Doom, or rather, I watch it more. I do appreciate this is probably the superior movie, just in its structure and everything like that. We'll come to Temple of Doom in a minute, but I'll mention, of course, what makes this film on half of it, is definitely John Williams scored it. I mean, obviously, he spawned out probably that whole era of golden, Hollywood, or during that period where you obviously Star Wars and Jaws, Superman, of course, but Red Raiders to that also a very triumphant.
It is the golden era of John Williams, basically.
Yes.
He's a genius. I don't know if I cannot say for sure if Steven Spielberg is like a bona fide genius. Maybe he is, but I can say that for sure that John Williams is a genius.
I would say that, yeah. I mean, it's no fluke a bit, but somehow of all the career and every film, he just brings. I mean, you can just close your eyes and you can visualize scenes when you just hear his score, and it is a score. It's not just a theme. Kind of like every single character has their own particular theme. There's the love theme between Marion and Indy, and like the march or the villains almost have their like and Lindsay, you raise your hand.
Yeah.
Yes, would you want to say?
No, because I remember going to see Raiders of the Lost Ark as a kid. I got to be honest, the first time I saw it, it freaked me out at the end with the way the Nazis' faces were disintegrated by the Ark. I mean, I'm surprised at the time that it didn't have any kind of PG rating on it. And in fact, I even remember seeing it. I don't know if any of this happened to you guys at school, like on the last day of term, they put on a movie, and they did this at school when I was in primary school, and I must have still only been about 7. And they put on Raiders of the Ark, and it just freaked the hell out of me because.
Well, don't worry, you're not a Nazi, so you're not going to die. It's fine, right?
That is true.
Well, yeah, but Indiana Jones said you have to close your eyes because if you
have to close your eyes.
Yeah.
I think they did the same to me. I think it was just at school, and then that part came in, and the teacher said, "Oh, I did." It was we didn't expect that. Then I mean, like she was, but the effects. Well, I've got to say, well, obviously, it's some great lighting effects with Industrial Light and Magic. I mean, just from the spectrum,
cleverly done.
Superb, but obviously a lot of dummy prosthetics. It is the age.
You can tell it's ketchup and mayonnaise or something.
Or wax. They literally do melt in front of you. It is before, of course, the age of the CG in 1981, but quite a different peak in those skill sets. So it's pyrotechnics. There's a physicality to I think maybe most, if not, well, definitely in the trilogy, there's a physicality still there where it is models and it is physical stunt work and pyrotechnics, and that kind of gives it this timeless quality. Effects age so fast, within months, quite honestly, if you see it. But here, because it's almost as close to the natural world as you can with effects, it's kind of timeless and sits at 94 setting. But yeah, like you said, Noah, it's a great story. It just happens to have a lot of action in it, but it is not an action film. Just happens because it is so much going on. But
and
you have a great
did
story.
Most of his own stunts for the movies, except in the second one. We're not talking about that yet, but the fight scene where he throws the guy over his back, he hurt his back for months. So that's why he stopped doing a lot of his own stunts, because that's a liability. So, and he was also in his 40s doing it, which is fine. But doing that every day, it's not the same thing as a 40-year-old going to the gym. So,
but definitely it is one of those. If you're just a student of film, directing, editing, writing, just take your pick. This is when you honestly how to make a very pitch perfect blockbuster film. It's quite not a huge budget even for that time. Spielberg he was off the back of 19, which had got a budget, so he kind of did this almost to prove a point that I will give you a very tight, and I think
20 million, which is about 40 million in today's money. So, yeah.
It is. And it just shows how tight it is with the editing. I think I think this is where you can see Spielberg's strength in his editing. How he deals with action, tension. He basically, I mean, he's obviously was the whiz kid there. almost at the peak of his powers, but of course he can dial it in any way he wants to. This one, quite absolutely just tight how you do action, how you see suspense. It's all right. But that was that was Raiders of the Lost Ark. Of course, this was born out because of the success, brought out the sequel, which was Journey the Temple of Doom. I think that's 1984. I would say definitely this is, for a lot of people, somehow a favorite, or at least you get the strongest iconography of Jones from scenes. It's when it kind of like, this is when it kind of really solidified that a pop culture character that will be on lunchboxes, and this ignites it in kids. I was just curious about members here when they saw it, what their impression of it was. I've mentioned kind of your first exposure. Quite scary also, but yeah, also in the UK is the first time we got this PG-13. It was the second film to actually film.
Yeah, same with us in America. This and Gremlins too, which isn't that also Spielberg? Or am I
He produced it. Yeah, I mean, it was what inspired the PG-13 rating.
Yeah. Yes, because of all the darkness and the. I actually saw it recently. Again, I watched all these not too long ago, but the effects age really well. I think even better than Raiders. The blood drinking and everything. We get some of Harrison's acting ability. Like I said, this is my favorite one growing up, and I think it's very fun and creative. Fun fact: the Maharaja boy that's not the kid's voice; it's a girl's voice. Because I guess the kid was older and they wanted a young voice. So, but I thought it was very interesting. The bug scene and everything. I hate bugs, so that freaked me out. That was actually not a real set, technically. That was basically a cardboard box painted to look all dark, and then they would dump all these bugs onto Steven Spielberg's wife. Yeah. All these bugs. Kate Capshaw, yeah. And to relax, she took a bunch of muscle relaxing pills to not freak out, which I'm like, same. Also, the song she sings at the beginning, Anything Goes, I had no idea that was an Indiana Jones movie. I thought they put in the wrong movie or something. But that song, Anything Goes, was written when the movie takes place, but when translated from Mandarin to English, it's the 84 version of the song, not the original version. So I did that song as an audition song. Fun fact, I can speak Mandarin slightly because of that. But I love the beginning fight scene in Shanghai, and they actually filmed part of it in Shanghai. Short Rounds, of course, really cool. Everyone loved him. I'm kind of indifferent to him. I think, what's his name? John Rhys Davies' character, Salah, is a cooler sidekick, but I know why people like him. I didn't find Willie Scott too annoying. I feel like that's how most of us would act if we were in an Indiana Jones movie. We would be freaking out. Yeah, there she is before she got all that bad plastic surgery and her face turned into like this kind of. I mean, we're not bad mouthing Kate Capshaw. We love her. But I'm glad to see Ke Huy Quan get a resurgence in his acting career. I thought the movie was very cool, very ahead of its time. Some people find it offensive, but apparently it was made to be offensive, to be like, this is how Americans actually believe stereotypes about India are. Like Americans can't tell that it's a joke kind of thing. So some people don't like it for that reason, but I think it's a very interesting movie. And the guy who played Mola Ram was apparently very famous in filmmaking in his own country. So I think that's really cool to take an iconic actor from that country and put it in this movie. The villains are very interesting in this, but they're not Nazis. So a lot of elements from this were added to the Indiana Jones attraction because of that. But I still think it's really good. I think the pacing is a little wonky, but I think the special effects have aged better, except for the CGI at the end when it goes from the mine cave to the water. You can tell it's CGI and like claymation. But other than that, I think it's aged generally better. Also, the plane crash at the beginning, I think, is like one of the coolest scenes. So, very good movie.
It's definitely more leading towards the action series now, and maybe you kind of feel this is more action than story, certainly towards the latter half. But that it does almost towards the climax. There is a mine shaft scene, or where there's the kind of like they're mining. I mean, the story basically is it's again another artifact, which is a Shankara stone, which is kind of mythic. I suppose taken a bit loosely from mythology, or a bit screenwriting liberties, actually. But it's kind of powers which kind of like brings goodness and kind of strength to a village and well-being. But then because these are sought out by, of course, it's more of the old the Raj and maybe the uprising of an old thuggy Hindu cult, which were actually, I think, merely just a bunch of thieves, really, in reality. But here they've become a bit more occult leanings towards Kali, one of the goddesses there. It is, but it is. I mean, as from that cultural background, I didn't find it offensive. It was just quite great to actually see him in a different culture, exploring it, knowledgeable. I mean, for him, the Indy himself is just very knowledgeable about customs and history, and it's just great to see it on screen. I don't think it needs to be offensive. It's only maybe someone else's party, their viewpoint that it must be offensive. It's really not. I think it plays it really well. And it's great. I think it just shows it's kind of such a globe-trotting global adventure that this is. I mean, you're touching quite a few cultures. I did like as you say, the beginning scene in Shanghai, where it's a Club Obi-Wan, obviously.
Yeah, I love that.
But it's kind of like he comes down in a tux, so it's kind of like very much a nod to James Bond. So you can see it does kind of like get my meaning inside.
Also, the music throughout the entire movie, I think this is better music than Raiders. I know that, and any movie, I know that's an unpopular opinion. It's also used the most at the Disney parks. Maybe that's why I like it. But I guess they're mostly action scenes. It's so good though. The music is so good. Like
I think you only know you kind of know Willie's theme, Short Round's theme, and actually there's quite a scene in obviously where it's there's a rescue. Obviously they get involved in this cult. They try to rescue some kids from mining these Shankara stones. But it does kind of like when they start their escape, and you've got a fight sequence simultaneously with Short Round and Indy and even Willie, who's kind of like just joining in. But each cuts between a theme between each, and the camera pans between all three, and it's kind of like it's music and how it's strongly identified and how good John Williams is in giving each character a soundtrack theme to it. So there's musical cues where there's no talking. A lot of it is action towards probably the last 20 minutes. It's action, but it's not huge dialogue. But it's part of that dialogue is by John Williams.
They broke a real bridge, by the way. I don't know if it was a full size bridge, but they did break a bridge.
They had to build it, and the mannequins look really good. I mean, I think it was the first time where they were able to have moving parts, as in limbs. So when they cut it actually looks very good. Because I recently just watched it, and it's like, you can't actually tell. It looks like, wow, this is really
real.
Yes, it's. But and anyone else?
Sorry, I also like the line when he's about to cut it, and he says it's like something about Kai in hell or something.
Kalima, we'll see you in hell. Yeah.
Yeah. That was so funny.
Again, it is a huge. This is a lot of the pictures and all the drawing. Kind of like posters and all that. This is when it really become pop culture, and I think House of Wolves is never been in better shape than this one. I think he worked hard. I've seen the behind the scenes. What do you think of course, it's a bit of a kind of a gear shift with Kate Capshaw as much more of a damsel in distress, but a different character, and you almost find it almost annoying compared to when you had the Marion Ravenwood character.
At least he's not a Nazi.
Yeah.
That's what we say about politicians too nowadays. At least they're not a Nazi. So like the next one, Elsa, spoiler for the third one.
Spoilers. CJ, you raised your hand. You've got your thoughts on Temple of Doom?
Yeah. Let me just put my hand down. I guess I kind of was late to the Indiana Jones party. I mean, in terms of I never watched them as a kid, but I did watch them kind of my late teens there. And after watching them, I kind of got it. I understood why these were popular, and it's pulpy action adventure film with a bit of comedy and stuff in there, and also a little supernatural elements in there, which are not fully explained. And it's sort of just a little, they give you enough for you to be amazed and enough to sort of be they're mysterious about it. But Temple of Doom is not my it's not my top Indiana Jones film. It's not my favorite film, but it does have my favorite scene, which is the bridge. The bridge scene where it's like Indy is running and then they're cut off from both sides. And it's sort of like one of those, it's very few movies where like I'm watching it, I'm just kind of thinking, okay, what's he going to do? Because this is almost like, it feels like a borderline impossible scenario to get out of, because in most films you could probably think like, oh, there was a character who said he was going to get help, so he's going to come back, and help them out. But in this scene, it's like, well, what's he going to do? And then he he cuts the rope of the bridge and stuff. And then, yeah, it's just one of my favorite favorite scenes in a movie. And yeah, I really liked it. And yeah, I think I know a lot of people don't like the Temple of Doom. I want to say it's probably my third favorite of the original trilogy. But yeah, just that bridge scene, I feel like is top scene of like all the Indiana Jones films.
I think it was not even that well liked by those making it, or Steven wasn't too fond of it. Kind of like he found it's quite dark, and I think Luke was going through a divorce at the time, so he said he was in a dark place, and he kind of channeled that through this film. And it is darker, but some of the set scenes are the ones that you remember. You think, give me a set scene from Indiana Jones, and then it's more or less you're going to take it from this movie. It's those set pieces that really stand out, and it is it's probably why I rewatch it more than anything. If it's on TV, I know I watch this part, because you don't have to watch the whole movie. You can just watch this. I remember this scene and that part. I think the minecart chase was supposed to be in the first one, but they didn't have time, so this is why it came into this. But I think it solidified as a globe-trotting venture. He was definitely a world culture that he kind of like looked at. It just opened up to the world. It wasn't just
and even if people find it like inaccurate, the Ark of the Covenant isn't accurate either, nor is like none of these things. It's like Family Guy, where it's nothing is 100%, it's everyone is game. The actual Ark of the Covenant, if you look at it while it's open, not even closed, just the golden part, you will also die, and people claim to actually have it somewhere in the Middle East. I'm not willing to do that adventure, so yeah.
But in this realm, yes, it's I think I do like that, at least for the first 3 films mostly, you had the supernatural element, but you didn't quite, it's kind of like there's a lot of belief that you have to meet halfway through to say that it is an actual supernatural element or something.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it takes you so far, but then it
doesn't convert you to that religion.
Yeah, it kind of like, okay, you don't have to believe. It's like there could be something there, but he doesn't. Then he kind of pulls back, and it's but it's it's a good movie. I mean, honestly, the trilogy, these first 3 films are from such a wondrous trilogy. Of course, there was the final crack of the whip in 1989 with the second sequel, was Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Again, how do you top or even equal or not disappoint these 2 previous installments? And that's a hard act to follow. I think this film, yes, came out in 1999. Again, we're returning back to the Christian of law and myth and religion. Obviously, the Holy Grail of Jesus. Jesus' blood was taken when he was crucified, and said to take. Well, I think he's a bit more liberty here. It was like to grant eternal life to those who drink it. Again, that's more of a screenwriting kind of like era. But again, we're back to Nazis and
when that happens.
Yeah, they're kind of like on safer territory. I think purposely they wanted to veer back, almost a reaction to Temple of Doom, to veer back to safer territory, and definitely it resonated more with Spielberg, obviously, this background. I think this time is obviously he's joined by his dad, which is so.
They had a 10-year age gap, by the way, those 2. So wear sunscreen, everyone. Hydrate yourself.
It's it is very much. I think this film just probably it's helps it.
It's believable.
Helps it get over the line of that quality where, because you've got Sean Connery, because you're almost thinking, yeah, this is probably the third crack of the whip, you're thinking, well, what new can you do to this? And it is obviously a great performance by Sean Connery. Honestly, I mean, it's a well-written script. It's both, he's not just a funny daddy, kind of like you can see, elements of what strong character, yeah, but very comedic role actually for sure. CJ, I'm guessing this is your favorite one, or is it Raiders?
I'm gonna say this is my favorite one. It's a good send off. It's a good adventure. It's good action. Like the tank sequence when he's battling the tanks. Like Sean Connery as his dad. It's just their dynamic is really interesting, and I like how like they butt heads, but they still really care for each other. It's also funny, like the no ticket scene on the blimp. That is just hilarious. That like, and yeah, it's just a solid film, and I feel like the Last Crusade, just the title itself, just tells like what they were going. I don't know the history of the films, but I think this was supposed to be the last one. Like they're done with it, and they're not going to make any more. So it makes perfect sense for them to kind of just ride off into the sunset, And yeah, I think this is a really good film, and I think it's Spielberg and Lucas at their I got some of their best. Yeah.
Again, some great sequences, and that tank obviously Nazis are going after the Grail and it's race against with them to actually get this artifact. But it is that tank sequence, definitely you think, well, how can you really top some of the really great scenes, some of the best scenes in cinema that was born out of those first two films. This one really does it with the tank sequences. And again, it's that physicality, a great bit of horse showmanship by either his stuntman or even Harrison Ford. I think he was quite attached to that horse and wanted to take it back with him, but he couldn't. It was proved too expensive. But it was a huge jump from the tank, from the horse to the tank, and then fighting. It's very. He still brought it there. I mean, obviously, as you say, it's only 10 years difference between Sean. Sean Harrison Ford really brings it in and ends it really well. Andrew, you've got your hand raised. This is a fun one of yours. So.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it because of taking some stuff from the beginning, but also adding some new stuff. So you mentioned Sean Connery and adding that element of Indy's father, but it also brought back some characters who I'm trying to think to what extent you really saw them in the first Raiders, but see them a little bit more here, like Sala and also Marcus Brody, Denholm Elliott's character. You also have the whole prologue with River Phoenix playing a young version of Indy. And I think that kind of sort of set up for the Young Indiana Jones series a few years later. I mean, not maybe in a direct kind of way, but kind of just that concept of, he even went on adventures when he was a lot younger. So it just kind of took things and made it kind of like the whole idea of like what the third film in the trilogy is supposed to be is like taking like elements from before, but then putting them in a different kind of context or larger context and saying, this is what we're going to add to it, and then also the whole idea of the send off, them literally riding off into the sunset at the end. Also, as a little side note, if you mentioned this, but it also made, it was probably popular before, but the site in Jordan where it was filmed, the Petra, become really popular. I mean, it may have been popular before, people were really into ancient history, but now because of this film, people are into it who aren't necessarily into history. They're like, this is from the Indiana Jones film, talking about the scene, at the climax. So, there's definitely a lot going for this film. And, it's a fun ride and a fun way to kind of send off the character, at least for a time. Although I don't know if they really intended that. But I mean, that's what I have to say. I mean, it was really just kind of a fun way to send off the character, a fun ride. Not as dark as the second film, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely good.
Yeah, definitely a lighter tone to this, much more than the spirit of the first one. Of course, his companion in this one is, I think, Femme Fatale.
Elsa. like
Elsa,
from
sorry,
Frozen, except the Nazi.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
like Alison
Also
Doty or whatever.
Schlater, something German, Oppie.
Oh, the character, yeah. The actress.
Oh, Alison Doty. She's the
Doty,
only
yeah.
Indiana Jones actor on Instagram, so that's fun. She'll be at Comic-Con on Sunday.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Alfonso, you got your hand raised up. You've
Oh, well, I just wanted to say that the big chase scene before getting to Petra was filmed very close to where I live here in the south of Spain. And I know a guy that was in that shooting, or let's say he was a kid around, and he was around that shooting when they shot very close to where he lived in Spain. And he told me he was a cinephile. We met at university, and he told me he had been a witness to that shooting of the chase scene with the tanks
wow.
and everything. And also, yeah, here the companion in this movie is really the father. It's like there's a girl, but really the main sidekick here is the father. As before, there were two ladies in the previous films, but yeah, here they switch it up.
Yeah. It's I mean, the femme fatale is really just turns out to be kind of working for the other side, obviously. So yeah, the sidekick is Sean Connery in this, and but some great dialogue between them, and it's kind of nice comedy chemistry. I think almost like with indeed the Indiana Jones character, he's always the kind of take charge guy, but then as soon as he's in the company of his father, he becomes this kind of like surly teenager who's just kind of reverting back to that father-son relationship. It's quite
Yeah, the humor is very important between the sidekick and Indiana Jones in all the films.
Yeah, I think
Maybe not so much in Raiders, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it helps kind of like you not take it too seriously, because it's almost like the running gag of Jones has a phobia of snakes, so he kind of can't really stand them. Hero who has very human phobias, but the humor is obviously just they sprinkle it in just enough so it kind of like reminds you not to take it too seriously and have fun as you go. But yeah, I think it's a sort of movie, except maybe I think this is when it started, that probably towards the end. It's almost perfect, except that when they meet, obviously the guardian of the Grail is this 900-year-old knight just standing right in front of you, and at that point I'm thinking, oh dear, this is really a bit awkward to watch. Really, it's just gone over the plausibility line for me, or you, because you want it as grounded, but in supernatural elements you don't really see it in that kind of like just right in front of you, but here it is front and center, and it seemed like a bit hokey. So
I prefer that to Aliens.
Well, we'll come to that in a minute. This is maybe the beginning of where say, oh, thank God you end it here, but this is the sign of things to come, let's say, quite honestly, as we saw, and it gets almost exponentially worse or better.
Oh,
Yes, Noel, yes, you wouldn't add.
Sorry, just a few things. I know this is an unpopular opinion, but I think it needed more Elsa or more something, because I know it was sad when she was a Nazi, but I feel like they needed more build up to that. Like, I feel like it's so much him and Indy that I wanted just something else other than those two. So I wanted more of her, because I think she just made it very interesting, and her to the dark side, so to speak, would have been more gut wrenching. But also not so fun. Very sad fact. The reason why Marcus Brody isn't in the next film we're about to talk about is because his actor was dying of AIDS when he was making this. So that's why he always looks so tired. Very sad. Because otherwise I feel like he would have been in the next movie, because he liked, doing these sorts of movies.
Yeah, you probably kind of facsimile replacement. Oh, yeah, very good actors in their own right. But he actually does get on part of the adventure himself, which is he's out of the classroom at the university. So actually quite good. And of course he's an old school chum of the Sean Connery character. So, but he's actually it is delightful seeing him, especially when he gets lost and they come. This is scene where he's got the part of the map to the Grail, and with any luck, he's probably got it already. He could blend in, kind of build him up. And then you see cut to him, and very much an Englishman abroad. Does
Yeah.
everyone speak English? It's. I'm glad he actually got some really good, funny scenes in that. So,
I also love the Venice scene. That's
nice.
one of my favorite scenes in the trilogy. I think it's just really cool and interesting. I also like seeing Indy as the professor and his little bow tie. This was the first one, but I like when the girl has the kiss me on her eyes. So that scene in the first movie when Indy shows up, or someone shows up at Indy's store, I think it's Marcus, and Indy's in his bathrobe. That was supposed to be a scene between him and that female student. And then Marcus Brody comes in and interrupts it, but they deleted that because they were like, that might be not aging well. So anyway, especially because Harrison was like in his mid-30s, and this was a high schooler that he's supposed to teach high school or college. I forget. Anyway,
but no, and good, and some good, again, nice. They actually put the kind of the puzzle solving scenes in that library in Venice, so it's kind of like there's clue, and again, good.
and the stamp.
He's
stamping, the librarian stamping the book. Yeah, that's hilarious. I love that.
But yeah, there's again, I think there's a lot more clue finding to the next part, and very much the old. It's almost like a game here, in which you're trying to actually solve the riddle and clues. So it's very much makes the spine of this movie, and it's good. It was just fully put in this one, more so than the other two. Again, but a solid way to end that, I think, quite honestly. So yes, I think as a trilogy, it's just great to see, obviously, all of them ride off into the sunset, and in that era, closed brilliantly, and so it was.
Yeah, there was actually a lot of. It was one of those things. I know that Last Crusade seemed like it was always intended to be the final one, but even back in the 90s, there was a lot of like, oh, we want to do another Indiana Jones film, but they could just never get people involved or the stars literally in alignment, with not just Harrison Ford, but also Spielberg and Lucas doing other stuff. It was just always very, very hard. And there was a lot of like talk about, oh, this person's working on, or that person. I think at one point, M. Night Shyamalan was working on a draft for another Indiana Jones film, and that didn't come to be. So it was also one of those things that people just talked about happening. It's like, kind of like what happened with Star Wars for a time, and again. But yeah, that's happened here. Eventually, they came up with Kingdom, for better or worse, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So
yeah, so this was a long gestation period for this. So I mean, they were quite, even Spielberg didn't really want to come back because he was quite happy it ended on a high for him. But I think George coerced him to really just come on board with this. And I think George took the original title was, Indiana Jones, Saucer Men from Mars. And now we're kind of like going to territory of 1950s, kind of like
and they also don't forget, in between, they also did the Young Indiana Jones, I guess, Chronicles. And I know some people have watched that and they've liked that for what it is. I know it didn't last that long, but some people liked it. And I think they've had to kind of retcon certain things because you've had films since then that kind of are like, okay, well, on the show this, but in the movies that. Yeah. So
it's again, yes. I mean, we're now more into kind of like, I say, almost sci-fi territory. But you've got again, it's in this one is against not Nazis anymore. Obviously, we moved in the time period, but it's the 1950s. But it's against Russians who are after again this artifact, which is the famous crystal skulls, which are both forces are after them. Again, a race between both of them and to catch this. And I think they go into more to prove South American territory. They try and basically return this, I think, skull to its crypt. And again, a lot more psychic kind of like nonsense going along, as in Skull speaking and telling them to. But I think he's joined. Obviously, I think the psychic this time is Chief LaBeouf, who's supposed to be up for his long lost son, and I think it's I mean, Chief LaBeouf is a good. Shia LaBeouf is a good actor. I mean, I think I don't know if he's kind of like molded after kind of like a Marlon Brando, kind of like that kind of like street gang. I think it's some nice scenes between them initially. It's when they get to know each other. First, they don't know their father and son, and then Marion Ravenwood reveals that he's his son. But it's that's because I'm trying to put the core relationship between the scene is probably between those two. And I think Kate Blanchett is the main villain there, and I think she does good. She does a good one. Maybe a bit wasted because she's kind of like really just on the heels of them, but they kind of like she doesn't come hugely front and center in a confrontation. If I'm guessing, what did you think of this one, Andy? What do you think why it does it work for you, or what's you like or you?
It's kind of tough because there are certain things. I mean, I gotta be honest. I'm not like bothered by the aliens as much as it's just the whole idea of I guess I was just fine with Last Crusade being that film, and if they were going to do any films going forward, then kind of like something like with the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, just something that's maybe more of a prequel, and maybe doing with I know this may be blasphemous to some, but just doing with a different actor. Maybe that's kind of why they brought in Shia LaBeouf for this film. Is he's very popular at that time because he had just done Transformers, he had just done Disturbia, so he was like this popular young actor, and I guess they were going to maybe do something with Mutt or whatever that character's name was, have the story continue with that. But I mean, I guess I would have just been fine if weren't going to end with The Last Crusade, then to do something that's maybe like a prequel, like something like early in the 20th century or something like that. That being said, I thought the film was okay. I mean, I know that a lot of people make light of the whole nuke the fridge thing, and it does seem kind of silly, but what someone pointed out is what makes it particularly silly is that somehow Indy survives literally,
Nuclear blast.
fridge being nuked, and yet at the same time you see this vehicle nearby get totally demolished by the nuclear blast. And it's like, how is it that this refrigerator survived, but this vehicle that was right nearby didn't? I mean, what material is this fridge made of? It's like a super, something out of like comic books or something. I don't know how to.
Very, very
like
high
vibranium
quality
or something.
lead, I guess. Very high quality lead, but there are some elements which just get really silly at that point. I mean, like I said, the original trilogy had some good, you were limited by what you could do on screen with physical stunts and practical elements. But when you're kind of given a lot of budget and CG, you kind of forget physics, go all the way and go out the way.
Or like Mutt swinging with the monkeys and the vines. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a famous meme, obviously. Yes, a swinging with Mutt trying to catch up with the vehicles who are racing towards the Crystal Skull. It's a bit where he swings through the trees and vines with monkeys, and it's just very just comically. It just feels so stupid, but and became a meme, really. Some really unforgivable, silly stuff. It is what you also got John Hurt in there, which I think kind of gets wasted. He kind of like he is his old following clues as an old academic colleague who's studied the Crystal Skulls, and they're following where the skull is buried and all that, but he's obviously his mind is mixed and kind of like deranged by the power of the Crystal Skull. So he's kind of like not even talking, but kind of like miming and all that, as he can't speak properly or speaks in riddles. It's a waste of John Hurt. Honestly, he's just a brilliant actor. He could have made a good villain in this instead, but it was good to see Karen Aaron back. Well, so and I think at the end, obviously, they can get kind of funny the hitch they want to get now. But it is the climax of this is it's basically alien or interdimensional beings. At this point you think, and I think it didn't do well, or it did actually financially probably a lot better than the other ones, but it's just critically just kind of, this is too cheesy. Alfonso, do you like this film? Or
well, I like the middle part. I think the fridge part is ridiculous, and somebody should have said something to whoever had the absolute power in that movie, who couldn't be told anything like the fridge is ridiculous. But that somebody should have spoken to that power or something. I don't know. I don't know how can so many people be in the development of a film and nobody says, take out the fridge. It's just like, it's crazy. And then Spielberg directs it very, very, very well. I mean, I love all the action scenes. I love the acting by Kate Blanchett and basically everyone. It's very nice to look at. And then the aliens, I think they are totally out of place. Yeah. They don't, and it's just like they appear, they change the genre, and they disappear. And they are there just to say, oh, there are aliens in this film.
Yeah, I agree. They're very out of place. This is like, this not belong in this kind of like, I mean, the beauty to those indie films originally is just keep it as grounded as possible, whatever the circumstance, as fantastical as maybe sometimes the climaxes get, but you kind of, you earned it almost by, and part of the believability is that because you kept it as grounded as possible along the way. And here,
or you use certain elements, but science fiction is none of them.
No, I always thought also there's a bit where there's an ant attack where they start getting attacked by ants, or let's say CG ants, and it seems like, oh, okay, well, we're talking, this is just like a video game. It's very, and I don't think computer graphics fit really well with this established type of style with Indiana Jones in particular, where you wanted this kind of old adventure, and then putting these elements in it either dates or it just takes you out of the movie. But yeah, the Source of Men it just felt odd. So it was kind of, so because of there's been such a gap between this and the trilogy, you can almost divorce it. But Harrison Ford is like, pretty, in pretty spry shape at the age of 60 in this one, but he definitely does some good enough physicality in there. Especially, I mean, the most interesting part is especially when they're trying to find the actual body which has the original skull in it, and they go to the Area 51, and a lot of almost some puzzle solving with, it's magnetic, so they have to use gunpowder or the bullets to get away. So it's kind of, if they kept it on the floor, it would be good. But it's kind of like very much a good action scene there, him swinging around and it seems to land quite a punch. As Indy can, but my least favorite, I think, still is, honestly. Right. Anyone else have any thoughts on this one? Have you seen it?
Yeah. Just, I mean, nothing more I can add to it, but just this film was really goofy. I found it really goofy watching it. I think Harrison Ford, he's not. I mean, I guess he's way older in this film, but he's still got that energy, with him. And I guess you could tell Harrison Ford really likes Indiana Jones, as a character. But yeah, the film is just good. I just found it really goofy. Just swinging on vines, a lot of CGI. It looked like, I know lots of people say these Star Wars films, especially the prequels, there's bits in it where it's all just, the background is completely CGI, and it's really difficult to tell what's real and what's not real. I kind of wish they had gone back to all right, this film is real. Let's not have green screen and fake stuff. Let's actually try and make a kind of realistic-ish type film. But I mean, yeah, the film's a bit goofy. I think it's okay to watch. I don't think it's completely horrible, but yeah, it's just goofy. Aliens and stuff. I don't know.
It's I think this series doesn't really work with real events. I mean, obviously in the original films they come real locations from parts of the world, you can tell, and it's just grounds it. Where here you've got a lot of background scenery which you see yourself and artifacts and building. You can tell there's a tangibility there that's fun. But that was like 2008. That quite a gap. So we thought that would be the end of that. I mean,
I just want to add one other thing, because you keep mentioning how good Harrison Ford looked for his age and all that. But I guess you could say I had the same thing with Karen Allen. I mean, she seemed to age fairly well for this film, and
beautiful in that,
and she does quite a bit in this film. So it's not just Indy, but also Marion as well, and she's a big part of the story. So she actually wanted to do more for the current Indiana Jones film, but I forget, for whatever reason, that didn't work out. But
But
Yeah.
you're right. It was so glad to see her. I was like, wow, you're really good. I mean, you wish like you wouldn't mind her being if they ever did a series of films back in the day together in that era, even they wouldn't mind. Hey, this again, yep, you can see she's the favorite. Quite a perfect match for Harrison Ford's energy and presence. So credit to her. Yes. Well, apart from that, so that was 2008. Obviously, anyone in their right mind would not make another one after that. However, that's not our reality. In this year, it's Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Again, a long gestating project. Should it be made? Should it not? Of course, post then, I mean, since then it was Disney had acquired Lucasfilm, and I think the pressure was on with all these properties to churn out another film and to get back on their investment. I think the budget of this was around close to 300 million. A lot of reshoots. I think this was almost like about being completed a year ago, but then a lot of reshoots with the script and so forth. And of course, in the age of the internet, a lot of stories. So when I was wanting to I went to see this recently, and I was thinking, is this really? You expect a disaster on this, So you can go, and then you hear. I didn't hear that much good news about it, but I thought just get it over and done with. But after coming out of the theater, I'm thinking it's not bad. It's quite fun. I think once you've travelled through the goofiness of the Crystal Skull, you don't have your quality. You're in a whole different era. You're calibrated to maybe not be so critical of it. Again, Harrison Ford. I think we joined him Indy at the end of his retirement and being called for one last adventure by his goddaughter for Archimedes' it's a Dial of Destiny device, or rather, it came like a device which you can predict fissures in the Earth and maybe show you where portals are to time. So we did aliens and space. What next? Let's do time. That's probably what the was. Again, it's not Spielberg directing this time. Enough is enough, I think, for him, he said. So I think it's James Mangold. So bravely taking on the reins. Quite a good director in his own right. Let's have some thoughts then. I'm guessing for those who've seen it, what did you think? Andrew or Alfonso or CJ, what did you think of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny?
It was better than I think it was better than Crystal Skull. I mean, it was all right. I mean, I don't know if I'll remember this one down the road, but I like the prologue. The de-aging process, whatever, notwithstanding, I thought it was a good prologue, kind of flashback to World War II era Indiana Jones and the adventures he had. Because that was something that was never actually depicted really, like during World War II. It was sort of like before. So here you actually see Indiana Jones during World War II on a mission and dealing with that. And so that's the prologue, and then jump ahead 20-something years to the late 60s, and it was okay. It was like some moments, and you had, I guess it's maybe not a spoiler since it's on the poster, but Antonio Banderas playing a friend of Indy's, and him coming into the story. So, I thought it was all right. I wasn't bothered by the time element as much. I thought it was what it was. But ultimately, I don't know if I'll remember this kind of down the road. It'll just be like, yeah, I saw it. It was all right, but it's not going to really hold anything too deep in my memory, I guess.
Alfonso, is this your new favorite Indiana Jones?
No, not my new favorite. I thought it was good. I thought it got me emotional by the very end with the last scenes. And I appreciated that because to me it ended on a high note in that sense. I really thought Phoebe Waller-Bridge was a very welcome addition in that sense of a sidekick that really held her own and got charisma to spare during the film. And I think it is very interesting just the fact that Indiana Jones is a character that has been played throughout so many decades by Harrison, and even we even have the young Indiana Jones on TV. So it's like it's a character that you see grow up literally. I don't know if there is somebody out there who has played a character for so long, or a leading man that would have played a hero. I know that now we are in the times of Stallone doing Rambo when he's 60 and Schwarzenegger, but I think this case is even longer in time. It is interesting, and I think it goes against ageism in general. So,
I think so.
thumbs up for that.
And such a physical role. This is not a behind the desk giving advice, the sage advice. This is someone really just running, shooting. I know I've obviously got stuntman here, but it doesn't hide away from age. I think Harrison Ford said he would do this because he wanted really to address the question of age, quite honestly. And it begins where, obviously you have this initial sequence of where it's the age, Indiana Jones in his prime and his glory days of yesteryear with some CG, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, but it's a good enough job, I suppose, to remind you of facial age. But then I much appreciated when it was then physicality. It was Harrison even doing this stunts or part of them or whatever, but it was him emoting, running, ducking, whatever. That seemed really just more exciting than the CG 20-minute part, which
I wonder what would be longer than this in the future. Like, will Tom Cruise be doing Mission Impossible 55 and he's like 99?
I think these actors who really enjoy that role enjoy what they can do with it, especially when they have a bit more control, creative element as a producer. Yes, I think we'll see Top Gun in space, I'm sure. Probably fighting aliens, I'm sure. Mission Impossible.
Yeah, and if it makes money as well. So.
If it makes money, yeah.
Fast and the Furious 47.
Well,
sure, why not? Yeah.
If they keep their budget under control, yeah, you can make a decent profit. Unfortunately, this film has made, the opening weekend's about maybe 60 million, which is not bad for a smaller budget film, and which would have been almost, I don't know if it's possible with these types of big blockbuster genre films of the 80s when they realized in modern day, with the effects and just the practically what's needed, it's to keep budgets under the control where they're profitable. That's the thing. And also, who's this? Is it aimed at a younger market who maybe are not have that love of Indiana Jones growing up? And Mario Brothers did really well. I think that's on 1.8 billion this year, but that's a younger. It's basically a lot of kids going to that, seeing their hero on screen. But yeah, we're talking an older demographic.
Yeah, it's not aimed at the younger crowd, and it has been the proof is in the pudding of the box office. It's actually it has also bombed in China, where the previous ones had not been released. So it's running on nostalgia.
Yeah, it is. But it's funny enough, the Crystal Skull made its money because I think it was a time when you had enough of the cinema, the main demographic or the main numbers of the audience was still had a lot of nostalgia for and curiosity just to see what would happen, and boy were they for surprise. So maybe on the back of that they think, after that debacle, I really don't want it's probably not going to be better than that, so maybe they stayed away. So but I've got to say, yeah, this film is actually much better than Crystal Skull. Again, it's with Phoebe Waller-Bridge. She's quite sparky, kind of a brassy character, a bit sociopathic, I think. So that's probably why I can't quite warm to her as in someone to take the mantle of Indiana Jones.
I don't think she will.
I don't think she will. I think I think it's that mix of charm and gravitas and just investment where you invested in the stakes with Harrison Ford, which he seems to invest in it despite the fantastical situations. I think it's key to making this character work, honestly. It can be such a cardboard cutout character, even if you look at some of the films from the 50s. There's one of Charlton Heston where he actually has a trilby and leather jacket, and I was watching it. So that's where George got it from. It's his film from the 1950s. Again, this kind of rip-roaring adventure.
It's also interesting that this series has always been set in the past. So this also helps, because if it was in the present time, I think it would be more difficult to buy into Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones in like, I don't, if everything was kind of like an homage to the 50s serials on TV, or this adventure series, Saturday morning or something like that. So it kind of began playing homage to an older adventure kind of genre, and it has kept always being in that vein. So it's interesting that it has always been kind of a blast to the past, in a sense, the whole series from the beginning. And it has always worked with the same elements, more or less. And so you can always rely on it, in the sense that it will always be set in a nostalgic past, an adventure past.
It retains its timeless kind of quality of, yes, it can exist. You give it a license because it is set in that kind of like that archetype. You know what it's going for. It's kind of a homage. Yeah, it's a homage to those. Even in 1981, it's a homage to those, the series of the 40s. So you give it a pass, and how believable it is, and you've given license, permission to, this is what I've come to see, and this, I know it's based in that era, so you can give it license. A bit more of a modern feel to this one. I mean, it's 1969, but you've got Nazis occurring who seem to, of course, again, the Dial of Destiny, they want to, well, their grand plan is to go back to the beginning of Adolf Hitler's kind of like inception of World War II, but kill him, which does that make them the good guys? I don't know, but kill him and then do the war correctly with the right, make the moves that he didn't. And
that is such a bad plan, by the way.
It is
that was actually the subject of there was actually a book by Stephen Fry, I think. It's like an alternate history novel, and it basically was like the whole idea of like, oh, if you kill Hitler, then you'll prevent World War II, and all the other stuff, the Nazis. In that novel, that turns out to not be the case. So I don't know if that's where they got the idea from for this film, but it does bring up another issue unrelated to that, but just the idea of, and I guess we're doing spoilers here, since you're mentioning that. How is it that they knew exactly that they would travel back to 1939 and not some other time period?
I think due to the dial of where, I know there were some figures or dates written by the father of Helena, the character of Helena, who maybe mapped it to the coordinates of what you were dialing it into. I mean, all it does, that mechanism, I'm glad the mechanism itself did not generate a portal, which I thought, please don't do that. But it does, it just shies away from, it's a kind of like a compass. It just shows you where these figures are. And maybe for some reason, not that they say, oh, this is any explained, I'm sure it just shows you maybe this goes back to this point. Although this is all very vague. I actually do not know.
Yeah, like why didn't it occur to them that like, oh, maybe it would just send them to like a random time. In this case, it was set to the default time, the Siege of Syracuse. So
it seemed it was like very precise, because then he remarks when they're all going in a plane going into this time fissure that you don't know where you'll end up because of continental drift.
Well, I don't think that's how continental drift works. I'm reading about that. So
no, I don't think so either. I don't know how
I don't think it worked.
Got to that conclusion, quite honestly. But anyway, at that point, I think you just have to put your brain into your backpack and just go
like
along.
the MST3K mantra.
Nobody was going to explain that to me, so I just assumed, okay, they got it wrong somehow.
And I think then, of course, another big, you could almost say goofy, but I kind of like just went for it this time. I was allowed to, I was having, because you'd already been calibrated to just not hold it to any kind of standard like the previous ones. Let's just go with, they actually do travel back in time or through this fissure to ancient Italy, and I think or Greece actually, I guess. But it's we
Syracuse,
have
yeah.
you have the invasion of the Romans with where Archimedes is, and so we actually have time travel, and you're thinking so that would split a lot of audiences. But if you don't welcome that, I guess you have no business going into this film, I think, honestly. But he obviously in this climax he does meet Archimedes, and he decides he wants to stay there. Helena, his goddaughter, has other plans. Is more of a touching moment that I think, I know she kind of forces him back, she just wallops him, but it's kind of that's the more emotional part where she seems to show some emotion, where it kind of like say, well, why I've got no one to come back to, and then she kind of gives him a look, said, no, it's me, I come back, and I guess Marion and so forth. But it's it kind of like worked. I think the ending worked. I think it was good that he came back. It is funny why he would think it's a good idea to stay, because knowing him.
Well, I mean, the murder charges in the present.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, and also there's this kind of current. I mean, something going underneath the surface there of depression after being like retired and just. So it's interesting how everything comes out in that scene, in that sense of like, well, here I think like I have a purpose, or I don't know what it was.
Yeah, it wasn't kind of like any quick answer, but it was kind of like it's the most in depth of kind of scenes of indie character. If you're trying to push him into 3 dimension, is what do you do at this stage of your life? And besides the whole glamour of location hopping and so forth, traveling, what do you do at that stage of your life? What's your purpose?
He felt like he had nobody.
He didn't have anyone. But then at the end, kind of like friends and family get around, and it's quite. And of course, Karen Ann makes a appearance again, looking very good, and kind of like relive that scene in the first movie. Where does it hurt? Kind of like a kind of tender, kind of like romantic scene there, internal pain and so forth. But it's it's fine. I was expecting the worst. I know there's a lot of online hate about this. I think apparently it was going to be a much worse ending than this. So I think this is why the delay and a huge budget of reshoot. A bit off base, but I kind of like I gotta say, Antonio Banderas in this. Who would be a friend of Indiana Jones, where you just turn up, you haven't seen him for ages, say, hey, hello there, and you help him, and then within 12 or 24 hours, your crew is dead and you're dead. It's not great. I wouldn't say it's no wonder Salah moved to New York just to be surrounded by some safe walls or whatever. But I don't. It's a shame, a waste of Antonio Banderas there. But I guess he just wanted to be in it, whatever happens.
Yeah, exactly. I thought. I thought the same thing. I thought that Antonio Banderas was a fan of the franchise, and he just wanted to play something.
Yes, a bit of puzzle solving here as well, which I kind of like with Archimedes, kind of the space on the water and the fulcrum. I thought that was a nice scene in the Caves of Sicily, so it was good. It did pack a lot in there. It is a too long film. It's 2 hours and a half. I think you can appreciate the skill of Spielberg when you got action scenes which have a good initial premise, but they just go on too long. They go on so long that you start not enjoying the action. So I think maybe Mangold, very good at drama, very good at maybe more low key drama and action. But with this, I think a bit of a misjudge with some of the editing and cutting scenes when they shoot.
Isn't Mangold the guy who directed Logan?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, okay. I mean, I haven't seen the film. I don't really mind the spoilers. I might see it when it goes on Disney Plus or something, but I don't know. It just feels like sad Indiana Jones, and he's not having. I don't know. That just doesn't really seem appealing to me.
It sounds like it, and then we were all fearing that. But I think because there's agency to him trying to almost protect Helena, his goddaughter, from herself, who's kind of like almost zealous in what she wants, and maybe trying to improve her character. So you don't get that huge, but it's only towards the end it gets reflected. It is a good film to watch on a Saturday after, and probably that is the be all and end all of it, which is basically maybe ironically what those original it was originally based on. It just a Saturday morning forgettable cinema cliffhanger that kids would see, you know, in the 30s and 40s originally. And that's it. You watch it, enjoy it, eat your candy, and forget about it. Basically, that's what this is. The original films are become classics for, you know, because you have a huge amount of talent and great writing, basically all the elements were just working together and all part of filmmaking. But this one is a Saturday afternoon serial film, and you watch it, have fun, don't take it too seriously, and then you leave the theatre. And that's that.
People online are saying that Indiana Jones's legacy has been, I guess, destroyed or decimated, or
That
whatever you
got
wanna
killed in
say.
the last film of mine, so it's too late for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ended perfectly in that trilogy, in the first trilogy. It kind of you really, everything else is just more was like fan fiction. But I mean, there were so many stories that was born after that in video games, in books, in comics, TV series. Could the character have been played by someone else? You know, it's just a very tricky ask for someone to say.
I think because I remember with the Solo film where they tried to replace Solo with a younger actor,
Oh yeah.
and I think they're a bit hesitant about that because these characters, Han Solo and Indiana Jones, are basically Harrison Ford. Like, he has that charisma, and he's the one that keeps his characters going.
Yeah, a hard act to follow, an impossible one. So, right. Well, I think we've come to the end of this adventure. I want to thank our host for joining me. And if you've never seen the Indiana Jones films, then I hope maybe check out the first 3 at least. and maybe can see us next time, and we'll do another special. But thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next time.
We hope you enjoyed this film and TV review.com episode. Catch the latest film and TV reviews, together with regular episode content from the world of film and TV every week. See you soon. Would you like to reach our film and TV review podcast audience? Do you have a product or service of interest to film and TV home consumers or followers of the entertainment industry? Have a film or show production to publicize? For affordable price plans for all budgets, get in touch and find out about our introductory advertising options. Reach our audience of film and TV viewers and visit our site contact page at filmandtvreview.com, or you can email us at business@filmandtvreview.com. Reach out today.